Cryptozoology is the search for and study of animals that mainstream science considers to be mythical or non-existent. Animals studied by cryptozoologists are called cryptids. Famous examples include creatures like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and the Yeti. Unsurprisingly, then, there is quite a lot of derision aimed at cryptids in scientific circles. Cryptids are the stuff of low-level tabloid magazines and conspiracy theorists, right? Wrong. Many animals that experts once believed to be cryptids are actually flesh and blood living things. It's sleeting and freezing rain here in the Adirondacks. And I thought I would start off by telling you about end of winter, early spring of 2019. In 2019, at the end of the winter, I started hearing things that I had never heard here in the Adirondacks before from our front porch of our little home in the Adirondacks, in the foothills of the Adirondacks in upstate New York. Now, we live pretty close to Whitehall, New York, where, of course, the famous story comes from August of 1976, and that would be Brian Gosling's story, which will also lead me into something else shortly. We also live pretty close to the state of Vermont. So in 2019, I was sitting on my porch one late night, early hours of the morning, before bed, and I was on the phone with a friend. And I heard something that I had never heard before. And the only way I can describe it is if a wolf howl mixed with maybe a screaming fox, some kind of sort of jungle monkey apes, and an owl, all making the noises at the same time simultaneously, but yet indistinctively together, but also mashed together like one sound. And the sound hit the inner being of my soul. Like, it hit my head, it hit into my chest. It's not like I could just hear the sound, but I could actually, feel it. You see, I used to poke fun, and it was all in good fun, at my husband, because, he gets into the Bigfoot Sasquatch. And, years went by, and 2019 came, and I thought for my husband's birthday, plus he didn't know yet, but I had been hearing these odd sounds that I had never heard before. And in my 46 years of life, I had never heard those kind of sounds, and it was repeatedly. And I decided to contact a friend of mine whose grandfather is Brian Gosling. And I set up a meeting for my husband and him for my husband's birthday, but my husband didn't know about it yet. Well, Brian Gosling was going to be leaving for vacation and needed to do it sooner, so he's like, can you do it this weekend? I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah. So I took my husband on this outing, and he had no idea where we were going or anything, and we pulled up to, I'll just say, a diner. And you know what? It was the Big Apple Diner. So my husband and I, we were just hanging out in the parking lot, and I was chit-chatting, and I was fiddling through the truck, and this, that, the other thing, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, hold on a second. I didn't want to go in yet, because I knew that we were meeting somebody. So I watch my husband as the truck pulls in, and he doesn't really pay attention to me. He sees the truck, but he doesn't really pay too much of attention. But then he looks and he's like, there's a Sasquatch on that truck. I said, you know, I said what I said. That's all. Keep it at that. And his face lit up. And when Brian Gosling got out of the truck, I just told my husband, babe, I set this up for your birthday, and I know it's early, but, you know, so you know the story. So, of course, you know, they meet, they shake hands, and my husband's completely starstruck. Because ever since he was younger, he had been hearing about this story, his story, you know. And so we go in and we get, you know, Brian and I get coffee, and my husband gets a pop, and we order lunch because I told Brian that we would treat him to breakfast or lunch, and we chose obviously lunch because it was going on. And I'm going to tell you guys, now my personal experience was when I was listening to Brian tell his story at the diner table. I listened to him again with reluctancy. And before you go and say anything, it's not because I didn't believe. It was because, well, I'm going to tell you, I have a little bit of fear. And of the unknown. And that'll be another story. Because as I was listening to him tell his story, I watched his arm hairs this many decades later. And I watched it stand straight up as he was telling him about his encounter. Now for Brian, this isn't a story. It's a real life encounter that happened that changed his life. And in a later video, I will show some videos and footage of him telling a story to a crowd. But that's what led me to stop poking at my husband. Although we still do have a giggle with some of the things that come into the yard and the house. You can just imagine. But you know, everyone has a story to tell of an encounter that they've had, whether it be in the sky or on the ground or wherever. And who are we to say or to judge or to doubt what they went through, what they saw? Because, you know, until you encounter something like that or hear something like that yourself, you just don't. You can only imagine. So we left the diner, and from there, Brian took us out to Bear Road, where he had the encounter. And it was drizzling rain, but it wasn't like a hard rain. So we got, you know, he took his vehicle, we took ours, and we got out. And my husband went over to the side of the road, started going off into the field. And before they did, there was a telephone pole there. And there was different markers. So Brian was able to explain to us how, you know, tall this thing was from here or there, and how it was quite the zoo there for a long time afterwards with people coming there. He even told us on how the Bear Road sign would actually come up missing. People were actually stealing the Bear Road sign. So he felt responsible, so he used to replace them. So standing there at that field as he told the rest of the story, in the actual place where it happened, I was wowed. I know that my husband was really wowed as well. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the first video other than the music videos, and nature videos. And I hope you all are looking forward to the next one. And, you know, there's a lot of things out there that are mysterious and things that we don't understand. But if you keep an open mind, you keep your eyes and ears open, you too may have your own encounter. Or maybe you already have, and you would like to tell your story. So if that's the case, then you can check my email in my About section of my channel, and maybe drop me an email. I would love to hear about your story. Y'all have a great night.